Let's be real. Every single day, you're scrolling through an absolute ocean of information. Posts, articles, videos, you name it. But how much of it do you actually believe? And when we're talking about history, something that happened long before we were around, how on earth do we sort fact from fiction?
It really all boils down to one simple but massive question. Is this source believable? Whether you're looking at an ancient document or a brand new article that just dropped, this is always your starting point. So where do we even begin to find the answer?
Well, the good news is, historians have been working on this problem for centuries, and they've developed a pretty amazing method. The best way to think about it is like a mental toolkit, a 5-point check you can run on literally any source to see if it holds up. And today, we're going to put that toolkit right in your hands.
Okay, let's dive in. Here's our toolkit. We've got author qualifications, their perspective, whether other sources agree, the accuracy of the info, and finally, the circumstances of its creation. It's a really straightforward approach, and we're going to walk through it step by step.
First things first, let's talk about the person behind the words. Because before you could even begin to evaluate what they're saying, you have to understand who is saying it. So step one of our check is all about investigating the author.
So here's the big question. Does this person actually know what they're talking about? I mean, you wouldn't ask a historian for medical advice, right? It's the same idea. Think about the famous poem about Paul Revere's Ride. It was written by Henry Wadsworth Longfellow. Now, was he a historian who was there on that night? Nope. He was a poet, and he was writing decades later. Now, that doesn't make the poem bad, but it means his qualifications are in storytelling, not in historical documentation.
Next up, we have to think about their perspective. And look, every single author has a point of view. It's just human. The goal isn't to find a source with zero bias. Spoiler alert, that doesn't exist. The goal is to figure out what that bias is. So Longfellow wrote his poem in 1860, right on the edge of the Civil War. His whole goal was to inspire patriotism and unity. That's his perspective. And knowing that helps us see exactly why he might have hyped up certain details and conveniently left others out.
So to make this super clear, here are some signals to look for. On one side, you've got your green flags for a credible author. They list their qualifications, they have a known reputation, their presentation feels fair. But on the other side, you've got some serious red flags. A really manipulative bias, a flat-out refusal to acknowledge other viewpoints, or complete anonymity. I mean, come on, if someone won't even put their name on it, how can you possibly trust what they have to say?
All right, so we've investigated the author. Now let's shift gears and put the information itself under the microscope. We're moving on from the creator to the creation.
Okay, now this is one of the most powerful principles for figuring out if something's legit. Imagine you're a detective. One witness tells you a story. It's interesting, for sure, but it's still just one person's word. But then, a second witness, who has never even met the first one, tells you the exact same thing. And then a third. That's called corroboration. So if we look beyond Longfellow's poem, we find letters from Paul Revere himself and accounts from other writers that night. And when their stories all line up on the key details, suddenly the historical picture becomes so much stronger and way more reliable than just the poem alone.
This next check feels basic, but it's absolutely fundamental. First, accuracy. Longfellow's poem, for dramatic effect, gets some pretty big facts wrong, like claiming Revere was the only writer. The actual historical record shows he wasn't. And second, is it internally consistent? Does the author say one thing in chapter 1 and then completely contradict it in chapter 5? A source that can't even agree with itself has a serious credibility problem.
But even if a source is accurate and consistent, we're not quite done. We haven't fully understood it until we ask one final critical question. Under what circumstances was this thing created? It's not enough to know who wrote it and what it says. You've got to ask why.
The original purpose of a document changes everything. A private diary entry might be brutally honest, right? But a public speech designed to rally support, that might exaggerate some key facts. Longfellow's work was a poem. It was a piece of art created to make people feel something. It was never intended to be a government report. Understanding why something was made is totally crucial for figuring out how much we can trust it.
And there you have it. That's the 5-point check. Investigate the author's qualifications and their bias. Analyze the information. See if it agrees with other sources and if it's accurate on its own. And finally, consider the circumstances of its creation. This is your toolkit. But its use doesn't end with history books, not even close. In fact, its most important application might be right here, right now. This toolkit that we use to evaluate the past is actually one of the most essential skills you can have for navigating the present.
Just think about it for a second. When you're reading a news article, you're checking the author's reputation and their potential bias. When you see some viral posts on social media, you should be looking for other sources to confirm it. When you're researching a product or trying to understand a really complex political issue, you are checking for accuracy and the circumstances of creation. This toolkit is for your everyday life.
So this toolkit isn't just about understanding the past. It's about navigating the future. You are now equipped with a powerful framework for critical thinking that you can apply to everything you read, see, and hear. The only question left is, what will you investigate next?